So essentially the rivets are made of silver wire. They were made pretty much in the same way that we made the pin earlier on, and they push through. I can't flip it over, otherwise it'll drop out. So we basically trim the top so that we've got just enough, and then we hammer it flat. The rivet underneath is on a steel plate, a steel block, sorry, not a steel plate, and the rivet holes have been gently countersunk so that the mushroomed over end grips it. Okay, so now that the two pieces are in place, that should be rigid enough now to use the other holes as a template effectively and drill through them to put the other rivets in. And this has now been riveted completely. There are 3 rivets on either side, which is sort of 12 rivets in total, and this is now ready to be fluxed and soldered. Okay, that allows me to find the centre. This allows me to mark off on the edge, so that's the point at which my pin will be at. Okay, once a hole has been made, I generally chamfer it off. This leaves a little trench for the solder to go into. On the back we do the same, and that leaves a little countersink for the rivet to sit in to stop it coming out. So do a little bit of filing just to take a tiny amount off, very tiny amount I have to say. Then the pin that we riveted earlier on comes through and sits out like that. It will be trimmed off, of course. Okay, so this is Silversmith's borax flux I'm just putting on here. Okay, so if you put this on with a good deal of water, it drags the flux underneath by capillary action underneath the hinge pieces, and that in turn drags the solder underneath the hinge pieces. But you've got to be careful where you put it, because you don't want this piece here to stick. So okay, so before we move on to the next stage, what we're going to do is, you can kind of see there, we've marked off the corners rounded, and we've already cut one of them. This is typically done with one of these, and I'm going to saw these off now with a jeweler's saw. Okay, so the way the jeweler's saw works is essentially you keep the saw in the same place and you gently turn the piece, so you don't turn the piece too hard, and you should generally put a bit of beeswax on the blade as well, and it stops it sticking quite so much. So there's all of our corners cut and filed away. Now you could use a pair of shears to do this, but shears tend to distort. You would need quite a large pair of shears because this is 1mm thick silver. Yeah, it is possible to do that, but if you cut with a saw, then you don't get the distortion. Okay, we need to attach now to the side of the buckle these silver strips. These are 1/2 mil thick, and when combined with the outer case, which is also 1/2 mil thick sides, you will have a mil thick, and they'll be riveted together. To get it on for soldering, we developed, this is Silversmith's binding wire, so we developed these clips, and I'll show you it finished because it might be a bit tricky to show while we're actually doing it. Okay, so there's the thing prepared. Essentially they're wrapped around, and there's a little twist put at the top which tightens it up, because there's a danger that this plate here, when you put the iron on it, it'll bleb out and cause separation instead of soldering. We're ready for soldering here. There's a little bit of soft solder been put on in paste form just here, and as you can see there's a lot of chips, and I need to go and torch that. So there's our freshly soldered item. Okay, to side cut silver like this, you have to have sharp case hardened shears. You can't really do this with the kind of silver shears you buy off eBay because they're too cheap. You need to get proper case hardened ones. I actually picked these up on a car boot sale. They're more like 50p or something, but here's a simple fact that you can also buy them from Cookson's Gold, which are nicely case hardened. So that will now be filed up, cleaned up, and then we've got to solder these end pieces down. Okay, so you can see the other side now prepared for soldering in pretty well the same way. Okay, so what we've done is we've soldered these on both edges, smoothed off the top edge there, and so what we're just doing now is gently rounding. This has been into the pickle to get rid of all the oxide, and we are gently rounding these around the corner here, and I'm going to put a bit of wire over them to tighten them down, and then we're going to solder those on. There we go, all wrapped up and ready for soldering now. Right, so here we are, close to the finished stage now. And you can see there with the rivets at the top there for the hinges. You can see we've taken that one down too. But, now we've got the sides soldered on. This is what the hinges now look like. They've had a little bit of engraving done to them. Pin also, there's a little bit of engraving done to it, and it's been shortened too, you will notice. So that is the inner of the buckle. It's not quite finished yet, there's a few little adjustments to do, but that's pretty much finished, and we now need to build the outer, which is where the artwork goes.